Hello and welcome back to the Go For Two podcast. I'm Liam, your host, and today we're not joined by Patrick. He's probably at home watching the SSE show on Netflix or whatever. He's on episode 3 or 4 already, I think. We've got a very special guest who I may have ruined his evening already with some news I've just told him. You've all heard his voice before. It's my the only Chargers fan, I say my favourite Chargers fan. It's the only Chargers fan that we like on the pod. Of course, Lee Wakefield. How you doing, mate? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad to be on. I was doing better about 3 or 4 minutes ago before you told me today's news, but yeah, that is something we'll have to gloss over. But no, all good otherwise.
Yeah, for listeners or viewers, because this will be coming out probably a week or so after we record. Today is the day where Rashawn Slater was taken off the field in a car, and we're not sure what's happened, but I told Lee that just before it went live. So if I've ruined the vibes of the pod, it's completely my fault. So we're going to try and avoid that. We're going to celebrate Keenan Allen being back on the franchise, not talk about Rashawn Slater. But how you did anyway? Obviously, we spoke to you pre-draft. Then things go a little bit quiet. Obviously, I know you've had a big off season personally. Like, how are you feeling towards NFL season? What are we 4 weeks away? I think now.
Yeah, man, we're just ready for it. I mean, it's nice to have a little break, isn't it? As you'll know, and then you kind of get the itch back, don't you? As training camp starts to start. Obviously, the Chargers have already played a game, which was good. But yeah, you just kind of it doesn't really scratch the itch fully, does it? The preseason games, obviously, I don't really pay that much attention to it. It's more about kind of like seeing what the reporters are saying, seeing about the rotations in the training camp and things like that, seeing how the young players are coming on. Obviously, he's a big draft nerd, so yeah, kind of seeing how that all shakes out. But yeah, it's nice to be in August and then kind of seeing this actually on the proper countdown now. So we've got another 4 weeks or so, haven't we? So it shouldn't be long at all.
Yeah, I forgot as well, Hall of Fame game as well. I forgot that was you guys. You got to see a bit of, Marion Hampton played a few snaps. I don't think many others.
4 snaps, I think, something like that. A couple of
everyone could run.
Yeah. I mean, don't want to see him in the preseason, to be honest. Just wrap him up in cotton wool for week 1 against your boys.
Yeah, see, I'm always crossed. I like the 1 quarter or the 1-2 drives where I can get to see the actual team play, just to, like you said, scratch the itch. But you're right. You don't want your players playing loads of snaps in preseason.
No.
I think you want to play them playing some, as we've seen with like the Bengals and stuff, and the Rams, kind of notorious slow starters. But yeah, you're right. You don't want to be risking your best players in preseason, especially your team.
Not after training camp is just as bad sometimes, isn't it? So yeah, no.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. You get a few rookie highlights, which we got from the other night last week. So that's kind of keeps the juices flowing, doesn't it? Keeps the excitement up. So yeah, we're doing all right.
Cool. Well, we are taking a break from division previews that me and Patrick are doing. Lee's going to come on for a couple of episodes. We're going to talk kind of more. We've got 2 quite big questions, I guess, that gets to talk about multiple players, multiple teams. Bit more fun than just talking division stuff and who's going to win the division and over-unders and stuff like that. So today's question is, who are the best 6 or top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL? We've chosen 6 for a reason. The top 4 is quite common in most people's eyes. We'll probably talk about that in a minute. Lee might have a different... we probably both have a different 4, but there's a top 4. 5 and 6 is up for debate. I don't think 5 is up for debate for us. It's probably a top 5. And then 6 could be one of... I heard a podcast the other day say 10. Yeah, it could say 10 quarterbacks. I don't think it's that many, but that was their thoughts. Like 6 and 7 could be one of 10. We're going to see if we can nail down who we think is the 6, and then debate it. So the goal is not to really rank the guys. We'll talk about it briefly, but we're just going to go through loads of quarterbacks, have some fun, talk about their strengths, weaknesses, what we like, what we don't like, maybe styles of quarterback that we lean towards more than others, and then go from there. So how easy were your we know what team you support, how easy was your 5 again? Was it purely like the 5, or was there a bit of a debate on any of one in the top 5?
The 5 is still the 5. I know I was saying to you as we kind of got on having a bit of a chat before we started recording, but I know the discourse has kind of shifted away from it being a 5. It's more of like a 4 now. I disagree with that. People will say that's for obvious reasons. I still think the 5 are the 5. The order, obviously, I think that's changed a little bit, and I know we're not doing so much rankings, but I do think the order has changed, and maybe we'll touch upon a few reasons for that without getting too deep into the rankings per se. But then, like the sixth, like in sixth, like you say, the sixth is up for debate. I think there's a couple of candidates from my point of view. I had a clear sixth, and then there's been a bit of news about who I've got for six recently, and that then has maybe knocked him down a couple of points in my mind. And then the way I've written it out in terms of the six, I've got like a six and then like a seven that's kind of right there. But I have written a bit about, in my notes about who would kind of come after that, because I know it's super debatable. So just leaving it as like a 6A, 6B would be like, leave a lot of questions. So I'm just going to, I can drop a few names. I've written out, what my top 10 is essentially. So yeah, I think, it's 5 to 5. And then, we kind of got some debate after that, I would say.
Yeah, and then in general, before we go into the names, what you obviously scout through the draft as well. What do you look at for like a top quarterback, regardless of who is our top 5, top 6, and the names? What are the kind of main traits you think that separate someone who's in the top 5 versus 11 or 12, which are still really good, still could win a Super Bowl potentially, but they're not those guys? What are the main traits you see that's the differences?
I'd say there's 3 points. I say in the modern NFL. I'd say first of all, it's the sort of thing, and I guess this has kind of been a little bit disproven by the Eagles winning with Jalen Hurts, who's a quarterback I really like, by the way, but it's not in my top 6. I feel like you've got to be able to hit a certain benchmark in terms of I can elevate the rest of this roster, and that's what we're kind of looking out for. It's not the only way to win a Super Bowl, like I say, as the Eagles proved, but that's what you want to give yourself the best chance possible. Secondly, I feel like it's about accessing all areas of the field with every throw, and that again it's not like the thing that you have to have, because Jalen Hurts is probably not that quarterback again, but again, it's the sort of thing that gives you the best opportunity. It's the best thing that puts that quarterback into that elite bracket. And I think that's the case with the top 5 that everyone will kind of talk about. And then thirdly, I think you've got to reach a benchmark of a certain amount of mobility in the modern NFL. We know that from not only just the rushing ability of the quarterback, but also the scrambling ability, the ability to get out of pressure, get out of sticky situations, create a play out of structure. That's become so important. That's why we've gone away from Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Philip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. That era of quarterbacking is gone. Again, you can be that style of quarterback. There's a couple of quarterbacks that I'll talk about tonight that are definitely like more pocket passers. But to be in that elite tier, you've got to have some sort of level of mobility, rushing ability, or at least, like I say, scramble ability, getting out of some jams. So those 3 things, I think, are what the things I look out for nowadays, as well as obviously, your regular things that you'll scout for everything like accuracy and ball placement and things like that. But those things, I think, elevate you from being maybe in that tier 2 to the top tier that we're going to talk about in terms of the top 5, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think arm talent versus arm strength is definitely an important thing. One of the guys in the top 5 hasn't got a lot of arm strength compared to, although it's got better. But I think arm talent, like you said, it's accent in every area of the field. It's, for me, it's whereas like when the play's not quite there from a footwork pocket perspective, is your arm good enough or talented enough in terms of mobility to be able to still throw that ball without getting sacked? I think that for me was one that I thought was important. And there's another one that I thought, this kind of does go back to the old era still. But I think it's more prevalent now in modern day defenses. I do think you need to be able to read, maybe not, you don't have to necessarily read every area of the field and coverages and be Tom Brady, but I think you need to know where the pressure's coming from in modern day NFL. It's not 4 down fronts anymore. It's not kind of, okay, just double mug, blitz to death like maybe it was 10 years ago. It could be 6 people on the line, 3 are coming. It could be 3 on the line, 6 are coming. Like, I think for me, that's the difference. And we'll talk some names in a minute, but I still don't think Josh Allen is as good as Patrick Mahomes personally. But the thing that I think he's kind of gone from, like, if I was grading them on a scale, I'd say he was like a whole point below Mahomes, 2 points maybe 2 years ago. It was that reason. It was that kind of decision making, reading out the defense. Whereas now you just see it, he sets protections, he'll get them in the right play, he'll kind of check to a run every single time in the playoffs, almost when it's correct decision. I think that for me is the other thing, because I just think modern day defense is so confusing. It's not as straightforward. You're not getting like cover 3 for 40 snaps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with everything you said, and that's probably the other thing I would say. Just I think modern day defenses are very different to when like, I'm not saying it was easy when Breeze and Brady played. Maybe there's argument the rules were favoured the defenses more back then, so it was harder to play. But I think now you just don't know who's coming and when on a blitz.
Yeah, especially with, you've got coordinators like Spags, you've got Brian Flores, those sorts, Mike McDonald, all these sorts of guys, Jesse Minute to a lesser degree. They are confusing to play against, and like I say, they're sending pressure from all angles, all sorts of pre-snap looks that don't remain the case. And we'll talk about a couple of quarterbacks, like you say, who have significantly got better in diagnosing those things for sure. And it's again one of those things where if you don't have one of those 3-4 attributes that we talked about, if you're able to diagnose, then maybe you're towards the top of that second tier because you're able to play the first sort of second of the play in your head and know how it's going to go.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Let's get into some names then. People who listen don't need to know who we're saying the top 5 are, because we're going to keep calling them the top 5. So the top 4 that everyone thinks across the board that you see is Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow. And our top 5, as anyone who listens to me and Patrick knows, I'm a lot higher on Herbert than he is. And you're a Chargers fan, so you're obviously high on Herbert. So Herbert is in our top 5 in whatever order you want. For you, is there any tiers in that 5? Or you'd say, like, from 5 to 1, they're so close, you're like, no, if this was like an NFL draft and I was ranking them like you do draft prospects, you'd have them just in the same group or not?
So I don't know, I can't remember if we did this pod or similar sort of thing last year, but I think I've said this to you in the past, like, and this is kind of what I was alluding to when I said earlier about the kind of order has changed a little bit. I personally, like maybe 12 months ago and maybe a little bit further back than that, would have put Mahomes in his own tier.
Yeah.
But this isn't to say necessarily Mahomes has got worse. It's maybe to say that others have got better. Because, we've talked a lot of time, like, I'm not going to talk against the Chiefs. I'm not going to talk against Mahomes. It's dangerous to do that. These things can come back to bite you in a few weeks' time. But yeah, I do think that the 5, I would say, is now become its own tier, and it's back to that being sort of I wouldn't disagree with anyone if anyone put anyone at 1 or 5 in. Maybe I would for some, but generally speaking, I wouldn't argue against this 5 being in any sort of order. As much as I've got an order, I don't think I'd be able to make a huge case if someone had 1 or 2 of the guys at number 1, let's say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. I think a good way I've heard Robert Mays say it as well is like the guy Allen and Lamar especially have closed the gap to Mahomes, which I think is probably fair, to be honest. Again, I think the reasons for it are not because of Mahomes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think there is.
We'll
get into this. I think there is a little bit of Mahomes not feeling as invincible as he used to do. Yeah. But I think it's more about the other guys getting better. I think we're both in agreement there.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's outside factors for Mahomes that slow performance a little bit.
Exactly.
And it's the same for me for Lamar in terms of why he's got better. I think having an OC in Todd Monken helped him read the pass game 10 times better than he did. He was always a better passer than people gave him credit for, but that offense has now changed, and the way he reads the play out, he sets his own protections now. Like, he didn't do that 3 years ago. And for me, that is almost the opposite of Mahomes. Mahomes' supporting cast has maybe brought along some bad habits, some worse play. Lamar Jackson's situation has improved it. And for me, Josh Allen's kind of the same player. He's just got better in terms of like all the little things have just gotten slightly better, if you know what I mean. It's not like a big change for him like it is for some of the other guys.
I think we have got really similar notes in terms of the comparison between Lamar and Mahomes. So the way that I'd kind of express it is the Ravens have done a really good job with how they've gone about developing Lamar through the OC hires that they've done. So obviously, Lamar was brought into the league. He was this insane rusher, like nothing we've ever really seen since young Michael Vick. They obviously had Greg Roman at the time, a run game savant. That's obviously worked really well. They lent into that completely. Lamar wins the MVP in 2019, if I remember right.
Yeah.
With Greg Roman as the OC, he's not this great passer yet, but obviously that's just one of the best run designers in the league at that time. Alongside this electric running quarterback, it worked really well. Obviously, as we kind of know, and I will experience soon, Greg Roman offense has a ceiling that is hit as a passer in particular. And then, like you say, Todd Monken comes in, and that almost like develops the passing side of Lamar's game. That then kind of is the second sort of phase of his construction as his passer. He obviously wins MVP again in 2023. Completely agree. Whereas Mahomes' situation has got worse. Like, they're not the go-go Chiefs anymore, where the bombs away. They're more kind of like heavy personnel, leading on defense, leading on spags, that sort of thing. And the scheme, I think, has limited Mahomes. I can't remember what the number was, but I read this stat earlier on when I was preparing this. It's like 30% of his passes last year were behind the line of scrimmage. Like, that in itself is such like a departure from how he came into the league. It's almost like that scheme regression and like the way the Chiefs are now playing, because they've got to construct the roster in a certain way, almost as like made like I said before, like made Mahomes feel a little less invincible. Like, he's still got a lot of good qualities, but he doesn't have that thing where like Tariq's just down there somewhere, I'll just launch it up and it's just like inevitable, like, oh, he'll just find someone deep and it'll just be backbreaking explosive. So yeah, no, I completely agree with what you were saying. Absolutely, completely. And Josh Allen just kind of like continued just to get better from like day one in the NFL, where he was genuinely bad. Like, I don't think that's getting brought up enough. Like, in college he was bad, and then in the NFL in his first like couple of seasons he was like an absolute turnover machine.
Yeah.
And then he's just rebuilt himself mechanically and just continued to get better and better and better, and not with loads of help either, like star receivers. And the best thing they've had is like the offensive line they've got now.
Yeah,
And
that's
James
their
Cook, I guess.
That's their weapon. Yeah, is the offensive line. Yeah, the Bills are actually the closest to the way the Chiefs have built their team in terms of it's like
100%.
weapons by kind of committee almost. I guess the difference is obviously Travis Kelce, but in the last 2 years.
But again, that's falling off now. So like Mahomes
exactly.
again is like doesn't have that. It's kind of good to have the telepathic communication kind of thing that they have, but obviously Kelsey's now regressing a little bit as these kind of physical tools fall off a little bit, and that again is the situation sort of decaying around Mahomes, isn't it? And then he's going to go into like another era soon where he doesn't have these pieces around him, and they'll obviously have to like remold their offense again and see how he kind of copes with that, I guess, as he gets a little bit older.
Yeah, definitely. I guess to round off on Mahomes as well, I agree with you on the scheme. To be honest, it's a constant issue. And the personnel issues have actually led to kind of Andy Reid calling his not his worst plays, but in terms of his worst traits as a OC, which is kind of short passes behind the line of scrimmage. I can scheme the play open rather than people get open. That's great. Like, some of his game plans are amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like the first Eagles Super Bowl, he schemed that up perfectly. But when you've got limitations in the roster, he just goes to his old tricks of like I said, it's like you said, short passes behind the line of scrimmage, screens, all that stuff, and that doesn't really get the best out of Mahomes. So I think that's one of the problems. And then the other thing for me that I would say is more the only obviously I'm his biggest fan. The only thing that I think is his fault, or his, I guess he's the main reason why. He was so bombs away earlier in his career. That random split where they went from like 25% too high to 70% too high the next year, and then his performance just caved for about 10 weeks, and then he did obviously then sort it out. And I know the Bengals game in the playoffs that year was terrible, but the offense was quite good towards the end. But those 10 weeks where it wasn't good, it just feels like he looked at the tape that offseason and went, "Oh, I can't do this anymore. It's too high. I need to check it down. I need to, be careful, read the defense. Okay, cool. I need to take a punt, let my defense come on the field." Like, it just feels like 1 year just changed his mindset to the right amount, because they won the Super Bowl the year after. And that was the year when they had Juju and MVS, and it was all short passes. But he was just a completion god basically at that point. And then he's just keeps tweaking it. He just keeps turning the dial on that type of offense more and more and more, and he gets further away from kind of what he's best at.
Let me ask you this then, because obviously you watch the Chiefs obviously more than I do. Do you not think that period that you went through where, the defense is playing me completely differently now, and I have to go through this learning curve, does that not mean better though? Because now he obviously admitted himself that he came into the league, he didn't really know how to read a defense, things like didn't really need to do it in college. But now obviously he does, and he's like a much brighter mind in terms of that. That's made him a better quarterback, surely.
Yeah, no, it's definitely made him a better quarterback. I think those Super Bowl runs, well, the playoff games, you can tell because like he doesn't put a foot wrong barely in those playoff games. The 2 years they won, and that's just him being smart. Do you know what I mean? Knowing when to run, knowing when to check into a run, knowing when to call a screen, knowing when to dump it off to your running back, then when to take 10 almost steps back to haul it down the field for the one long completion. But I just think he's almost out thought himself to this point. Like even he said it, he's a bit like, I'm coming out and being like, okay, cool, this is like a sim pressure. This person's dropping, this person's, and he's just like, oh, actually, no, it was just cover two.
Yeah,
I kind of just almost like he knows too much. He's seen too many defenses now, and he needs just to get back to a bit more instincts. So I do agree that it's made him a better quarterback, but I think as like, especially for neutrals, I think it's changed his play style so much that then I think that's why you see a lot of fans being like, I take Lamar and Josh over him, and I think some of that is literally just because style of play. Yeah,
it is. And it's the way it's. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I say it's not to do with him getting worse per se, because as we've just had a conversation about, he's got better in some ways. Like he's, like I said, a much more intelligent quarterback now, and he's gone through that learning phase, which has made him better. But it does manifest itself in not only the eye test, but also I saw that last year Josh Allen led the NFL in EPA per play at 0.321, which was outrageous, first and foremost. And Mahomes was 10th, about half the mark. It was like 0.165 or something like that. So he's like half the EPA per play that Josh Allen is, and that is quite a big step, from the MVP of the league, who just was on an absolute tear for like most of the season, to like the guy who's been considered almost untouchable for the few years preceding last year. It's quite a step back, isn't it? It's not just the eye test; it's also what bears out in the stats as well.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, I guess
which is like you say, it's down to the scheme as well. It's not purely down to Mahomes, I will say.
No, yeah, scheme, personnel, history, a bit of Mahomes. Because obviously has been a bit worse. Because he was really good in the playoffs the year before last year, but the regular season was still. He was actually probably worse 2 regular seasons ago. Last regular season, he was arguably probably better. He's had less to work with. But the playoffs, he was really good, and then obviously in the Super Bowl this year, he was. That's his worst game ever probably as a starter. Like obviously the people around him weren't good, but he actually was bad in that game himself. So yeah, no, I completely get what you're saying. I think my only caveat would be I think they were 9th on DVOA as an offense and like 2nd in success rate, and that was with DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, Joe Tooney at left tackle, Mike Caliendo at left guard, and Kareem Hunt at running back. I think the fact that he can still lead in a very good offense, even though it's boring, a complete boring, slow paced, no explosive offense, but he was just like, this is what we have to do to win games.
Yeah.
I think if you put those weapons and you give them to Joe Burrow or Josh Allen in particular of this group, I personally just don't believe they're going to get anywhere near, they're not going to make a Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. But Lamar might be a different story. I think he's probably come on the most out of anyone in this group. Cool. I don't want to talk about Mahomes the whole time because it's also making me sad. I want to watch him throw the ball down the field, which I'm quietly confident will happen this year. Josh Allen then is the one I want to talk about next because I actually think maybe of the top 5, he might have the highest highs now for me. People do seem to love Lamar Jackson. Like if you love Lamar Jackson, he's like your favorite player ever. I would still rather play Lamar Jackson in the playoff game as the opposition fan than I would Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen's a better player. But I think out of all these guys, he's got the highest highs, but I do still think he has those lowest lows. Like there'll be those drives where it's like 1st and 10, 60-yard bomb over someone's head. 2nd and 10, hold the ball forever, take a sack. 3rd and 10, oh no, he's throwing a pick because he's trying to force something. I find it quite funny that even though he's got better at every aspect, I still feel like he has the highest highs and the lowest lows. Do you feel that way, or are you a bit more confident that he's not going to have those crazy Josh Allen moments? Because we don't really see many from Mahomes. We don't see many from Jackson. We don't see hardly any from Herbert. We don't see any from Burrow. But I feel like Josh Allen, he does have those weeks where you're like, God, like, he looks terrible.
Yeah, he does in some ways. I mean, I find it funny that you say you'd rather play Josh Allen, considering that the Chiefs always beat the Bills.
They beat the Ravens too, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's kind of funny from a Chiefs fan. it's. I just think that my personal journey with Josh Allen, because I was completely dumbfounded that he went as high as he did in the first round when he came out of
Yeah.
college. I had a third round grade on him. I didn't think he was very good at all. I thought he was a complete bag of tools, and he was. And I feel like he's the exception to the rule rather than the sort of blueprint for this kind of thing. He's the sort of person who has taken himself on a journey of improvement by rebuilding his mechanics completely. And like I say, maybe that does come out sometimes with these moments where he does kind of, like I say, overthrow people, or he throws like makes a stupid decision or something like that. But I feel like he also has the moments that Mahomes used to do more so than when it was the kind of bombs away Chiefs days, where he just feels inevitable. But it's more as like a runner that he has those moments where he just thinks it's 3rd and 4 or something like that, and he'll just get 6 yards by just bulldozing someone. It's just like he's able to put the team on his back like not many players can do. Is kind of the way I describe it. I guess it's one of those things as well where the couple of these top guys, they haven't had the playoff success, but because all these top guys are AFC guys, and Chiefs have essentially dominated the playoffs in the AFC for so many years, like Allen deserved more playoff success than he's got. I'm not 100% sure Lamar has, because he's been really poor in the playoffs, and I've seen that firsthand against Chargers early in his career. So I think from the regular season point of view, you might be right. I'd rather play Lamar, but I'd rather play Allen, but in the playoffs, I'd rather play Lamar, because like a few of these guys, they kind of need to get this like playoff monkey off their back a little bit and kind of have some success that's kind of down to them. Like obviously we've got the Josh Allen like 13 seconds game. He literally couldn't have done anything more in that game, but obviously he's not got the success because of it. But it's different. I think kind of going back to your point that you mentioned about Mahomes, really, like these guys can kind of be not bad in the regular season, but they can kind of wait and turn it on in the playoffs because they kind of know their teams are going to get there a lot of the time.
Yeah, it just feels like those two just never do. Lamar and Josh Allen, they just are 100 miles an hour regular season every single game, which I think is why they're so exciting to watch. They're definitely more exciting to watch than the other three in the steer. Like, as much as I love Herbert, they're just so exciting. So you don't know what's going to happen with them, with Lamar and Josh Allen. I think that's purely because they run more. I think if Herbert and Mahomes ran more, which they are capable of doing, they'd be more exciting players. But people just love a scramble on like 3rd and 9 where Josh Allen's rolling to his right and dives over a pylon. It's just a cool thing to watch.
Completely different styles of running. So like Lamar's so like smooth and like so sleek, but Josh Allen's just like I say, it's just a bulldozer, really, just chaotic bulldozer. Will just run someone over. I think, like I said before, that like I said at the top of the pod, that you've got to have that in this modern day. You've got to have that ability to do it. I mean, these two guys are probably the best at it at the top of the game. In terms of like being the top quarterbacks and a great rusher as well. The other three can do it, but they do it in their own different styles. I think, like you say, Herbert doesn't do it enough, and we'll come on to him. He's a bit too safe as it is in some regards. But yeah, these two are just super exciting, and I know we're not ranking, but these two would be my number 1 and 2 to kick off the season. So they're just different at this moment in time.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm biased, so they're not going to be my 2 or 3, obviously. And they do actually need to beat the guy who's number 1 in the playoffs.
They do, absolutely, 100%.
Be number 1. But yeah, if you're taking someone for 17 games, I think it's hard to argue. To be honest, Lamar Jackson's so good in the regular season. Anyone said to me like regular season, I'm taking Lamar, I'd be like, okay, I'm really not going to argue with you. But I think Josh Allen and Mahomes in the playoffs, they both play incredible almost every single game. And it's just Josh, like you said, hasn't had the luck of it. And most people would have, some people would have Burrow at 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I think we both have him probably at 5, which is
I do.
Yeah, we're rare in that case. But let's leave Herbert next because I know you've got probably a lot to say about him. But in terms of Burrow, why do you think a lot of people seem to be having him? PFF had him at 2. The Athletic guys had him at 3. The Ringer guys one of them had him at 1. Like, why do you think so many people think he might be the best, whereas me and you are a bit more like he's amazing, but I prefer Herbert?
Because everything in the media is tilted towards offensive football, and the offense puts up 35, 40 points every week. And maybe there's some sympathy towards him in particular because, we saw it all last season, didn't we? Having to put up 38, 41 points just to win a game, because his defense is so bad. Maybe there's some sort of sympathy towards that he's losing games despite playing incredibly well, and the Bengals' record is so far behind what it potentially should be if they had a competent defense. For me, he has a couple of areas, and I think you kind of alluded to one earlier. He can put the ball wherever he wants. He can access the field in every way. He kind of does check that box from kind of what I made that little checklist about earlier. But it's done in a completely different way to the others. He just doesn't have the arm talent and the arm strength in particular compared to the others, and that can hinder you. That just is like a notch down. And as much as that's maybe not the most important thing in the world, it certainly limits your ceiling. If you get any sort of injury to your elbow, shoulder, and that limits your power even further, then you're struggling to fit things in tight windows. So, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But if that does happen, then we potentially might see a bigger struggle from Burrow than we might see from the other quarterbacks. The other reason is as well, obviously you'll never get this, but I was trying to consider the supporting cast when kind of making my notes and kind of collecting my thoughts about all these guys. When I know we talked about the defense just now, or I did talk about the defense just now and how bad it is and how many points they have to put up to win a game, but offensively they've got everything in place apart from the offensive line. But as in terms of playmakers, passing game playmakers, he's got everything. So how much is he helped out by Chase, by Higgins being there and being able to be a safety valve and being an explosive safety valve at that? Because the negative from my point of view, kind of feeding off that, is Burrow almost feels like he's a bit more scheme dependent than the others as well. He prefers to be in shotgun most of the time.
Yeah.
And he, a little bit like what we were talking about with Mahomes, but he hasn't maybe developed this as much. He's struggled to read defenses for longer, I would say. He's getting better right now, but he used to be able to confuse Burrow all the time with pre and post stat movements and rotations and things like that. And I only think in the past 12 months he's maybe got quite decent at that.
Yeah.
Which I think again just means that he's maybe a tick behind all these other guys, because we've talked about Mahomes getting better, we talked about Lamar, Allen getting better. Herbert never had a problem with this. He's a quantum computer in terms of processing. Burrow, again, alongside this sort of arm talent query that I'm raising, almost has that as well. Plus, then he's doing this with all the playmakers, and how much would he benefit? How much would he fall back? If he wasn't in such a beneficial situation in terms of having two of the best receivers in the league and a decent tight end and things like that. So it's kind of all these questions that are kind of popping around in my head and thinking, I still consider him a tick behind.
Yeah, and his offensive line is still an issue, right? But
absolutely,
at left tackle, the Ravens didn't have Stanley for most of the regular season. He was in and out. The Chiefs were a disaster there. He's got a better left tackle than both those two teams, arguably. And do you know what I mean? In terms of having a solid left tackle, it's the interior that's their problem. But yeah, you're right. It's not like he's, they're not the Texans' offensive line. It did get better. Mims was quite good in his first year in the snaps he did play. So, yeah, I'm with you. That's definitely a factor, but I don't think it's as bad as it was 2 years ago. I think it was his quick pressure rate was nuts. Whereas last year, CJ Stroud and Mahomes were number 1 and 2 with a bullet for quick pressure, whereas that would have been Burrow 2 years ago. And I think since that's calmed down a bit, maybe that's why he's got better at reading defenses, because he has had that tick more time. Yeah, he has to. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you're right. I think he gets dinged a little bit for supporting cast. You actually made the point that I was going to make, that I think it's also how he wants to play. He's not quite in the Aaron Rodgers bucket of I'm only doing these 7 or 8 things. But anyone who knows more than, speaks to, the people that go to camp, the people that know the insiders, the people that interview Taylor or Burrow himself, it's not like a exaggeration to say that he basically only wants to play a certain way. Do you know what I mean? Again, shotgun, kind of drop back, doesn't want to turn his back to the defense. None of these guys want the running backs to have the ball, but Lamar and Josh Allen, they do give the ball to the running backs, and they're fine with it. The amount of times he'll check out of a run, he did it on Netflix Quarterback 3 or 4 times, where someone's make a joke it's like 3rd and 1. He's like, "You're going to run it," and he's like, "Hell no!" And then he snaps the ball and he throws it to
Yeah.
Jamar Chase. It just feels like he does limit them a little bit from that regard. Obviously, his arm talent's not as good.
It just limits the scheme as well, right? Like you can only run certain things out of shotgun in terms of the run game. You play action game is completely cut down. Like all the best coordinators, especially the Shanahan tree guys, they would not be able to work with this guy because they won't fit the run game together like they want to do with the pass game.
No, and I don't love Zach Taylor, but one of the things he has done well, really, is to kind of almost go along with that in the right ways and try and, like, last year they did have a slightly different offense at times compared to previous years, especially in the run game. And I don't think he's a great head coach, but he has done well with that because he has got someone there who all reports say just will not want to change how he plays. So I think that is a factor. And then for me, the thing he's got better at that before, I would say he was like, for me, 5 quite maybe in his own tier, to be honest. I almost had like Mahomes in his own tier, the other 3 in their tier together, and then Burrow was in his own. But last year he got better at this, which was kind of extending plays.
Yeah.
So he's got better at stepping up into the pocket, kind of moving around guys. Again, he's not going to run for 50 yards, 60 yards a game, but he'll run for that 10-yard first down. He'll kind of sprint out to the right, throw across his body. Like before, he would kind of just be stood there, read it out. Cool, I've got a comeback route with Jamar Chase. I mean, I've got a big post, I've got a dig. Whereas now he's more like, right, I'll move around, make some space, make some time. Here's a throw on the move. I think that's the bit this means for me is like, okay, I get, he is in that tier of whatever order you want them in. And then we'll see this year. It's a big year for them. It feels like offense and defense. The offense has got to be elite again, and the defense needs to be average. And they'll want to be a playoff team for sure.
Yeah, completely.
Cool. Let's go on to your QB then. Probably definitely the most controversial in the 5. We love him. I used to say he was the second best quarterback in the NFL. Unfortunately, I don't say that anymore. What is it that you think puts him in this tier? Because I do think people listening, half of them, well, maybe not. Let's be honest, actually less than half. 25% will agree. 75% will say you're crazy, and I'm crazy. So why is Justin Herbert with these guys?
So I think, there's a few points. So first of all, like arm talent, arm strength is like the elite of the elite in the league. Allen, Mahomes, Matt Stafford, Herbert, Aaron Rodgers a few years ago, they were like, they can do what they want with the football in terms of accuracy, hitting whatever sort of length of throw down the field, ball placement, it's all there. Variety of arm angles, launch points, on the move, it's unquestionable. Like I said before, you've got to have, this is one of my key sort of checklists, you've got to be able to do this sort of thing. He's an underused athlete as well. Like I really hope this season Greg Roman kind of works in some more QB run. He's got to scramble a little bit more as well, because like I said before, that's really, really valuable. And I think he was kind of starting off the season with this last year, but he got a high ankle sprain in week 2. He missed quite a bit of training camp with plantar fasciitis last year. I hope that this will be worked in now that he's kind of fully healthy, touch wood, and that can, again, kind of check off another box that I have. I've already talked about the processing. He's like a quantum computer. He's the best processor in the league. You can probably throw a couple of names in there, but we're talking about all these players, like I said before, who've made improvements to come up to this sort of level. Like the speed in which he goes through his reads is incredible. There's probably only maybe another quarterback that I'll talk a little bit later about who is sort of in the same league in some senses. His ball security is incredible. He's never really put the ball in harm's way. He had just a 2.4 turnover worthy play rate last year, which again is amazing. All the things there, all the ingredients are there. He gets dinged for the team success, which drives me insane. He gets dinged for the playoff success, which does have an element of truth to it. He's had 2 runs at the playoffs, and it's been 2 shocking games. Not wholly his fault. I think, again, that's kind of swayed because obviously the counting stats look bad in terms of the interceptions. 4 picks last year against the Texans. I think 2 of them at least were not his fault, but we kind of don't need to rehash that, I guess. So I think in terms of all the elements that I look for in terms of the QB, I think are all there. and I think they're all there alongside all the rest of these players as well. I think he's ahead of some players in this top 5 in some regards, less so in others, but I still think he's in the same league. And then it comes down to like your preference, doesn't it? I mean, I watch the guy every single week, so I guess there is going to be some element of bias there. But if you're saying it as well, can't be that biased. Because obviously, the drawbacks is obviously he is too safe with the ball.
Yeah, he is.
He doesn't push the ball down the field nearly enough. It is getting a little bit better, and it did get a little bit better in Greg Roman's offense last year. I think he had that in college. I think he had it in Joe Lombardi's offense in particular. He was like super, super conservative and wouldn't push the ball down the field. Obviously, it was the famous like A dot conversation that was super, super low. And like I said before, he just needs to get the playoff monkey off his back. And obviously, he's suffered a few injuries now, same as Burrow, in terms of, they've had limiting injuries. So I can see it from both sides. I think that there are reasons and contexts that kind of support some aspects which he gets dinged on, but I think he's right up there in terms of all the elements that I look for.
Him and Burrow are very similar in that regard in terms of injury history as well.
Absolutely.
They both can't get through seasons like the other guys can quite as well. The thing where they're different, not to keep not buttering you up as the guest here, but he gets dinged for team success, whereas whereas Joe Burrow gets to like, oh god, like poor Joe, like he just needs a defense, and you're like,
Joe Burrow has got like the most like media behind him in like the whole of the NFL. This whole like Joe Burrow aura, Joe Shiesty, all that sort of stuff, man. If Herbert spoke to the media a little bit more, maybe he'd get that, but he's just not that sort of person. They're just different personalities, aren't they? And I think it plays into it a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he for me, I sometimes Josh Allen's a little bit of that for me as well, to be honest. But Joe Burrow is definitely number one with a bullet in terms of media praise quarterback. So I think Herbert gets dinged for that a little bit. I liked him for all the reasons that you liked him. I thought for me in college, I think I went back and watched some yesterday preparing for this. I think he was a bit more aggressive in college. I loved him coming out. Kind of wanted him to come out the year before. I think the Giants were probably going to take him at that early pick where they took Barkley. I got some family that are Giants fans, so I kind of thought he could be the one to turn them around. So I've always loved him, but I do think as the years gone on, he's almost got less aggressive to me, which is a bit of a worry. And I'm hoping this year is the year where he can he's not going to be Josh Allen, but if he could just be, ironically, if he could just be like Mahomes level of aggressive, like in the playoffs, for example, not regular season with his A dot, but I think that would fit. He's never going to be Burrow just throwing it into ridiculously kind of risky windows for Jamar Chase. He's not going to do Josh Allen scramble to the right, throw it 70 yards. He's going to take the right play. So, that's the one for me. Will they run him a bit more? We'll see. I kind of prefer if he would just scramble a bit more. I think he'd get that in his own head a little bit. And then the other thing that he got dinged with 3 years ago that I don't think was true, that the stats are starting to swing that way now, is everyone used to say he wasn't clutch, but there was no kind of proof 3 years ago to prove that. But last year, like his stats are quite mental of like EPA so in a normal game setting where they're not losing and it's not in the 2 minute, he was like only behind Josh Allen in like EPA per play. But then when you put clutch moments, as they would call it, so third down, fourth down, last 2 minutes, just before a half, he was like 10th. And I don't know if that's the team. I don't know if that's Greg Roman. I don't really like Greg Roman, to be honest, or if it's the supporting cast, or if it's him. I don't know if you've got a view on it. But 3 years ago, I think it was unfair. I was just like, well, hang on, he had loads of fourth quarter comebacks. Whereas now it seems to be a bit more like, I don't know if it's his lack of, maybe where the NFL is changing in terms of defenses, his lack of aggressiveness is hurting him in clutch moments because he's like, I'll take the check down. That's the right play. And it's like, they want you to take, they're making you take the check down. Like, what do you think about that? Because like I said, the stats have changed a bit where maybe, I'm not saying he's not clutch, but they support that argument more than they did 3 years ago when everyone was banging on about it.
No, I think I can't remember. I don't have the numbers in front of me off the top of my head, but he's got, like you kind of alluded to, he's got tons of game-winning drives. He's got loads. He's got quite a few like fourth quarter comebacks. I don't think there's a clutch problem at all. I potentially think, and it's only one season sample size, so it's difficult to say. From going from one offensive coordinator and one head coach to another. But I feel like, first of all, obviously we know how much Brandon Staley used to go for it on fourth down, so that kind of gave him more opportunities. Whereas Jim's more traditional head coach, will kind of just play for the kind of easy points, kick the field goals, that sort of thing. Yeah. I think we'll have to kind of see how much it kind of plays out, really. But I think the comparison between the head coaches is part of the reason, because I feel like a lot of what Harbaugh is preaching is like protect the football, be safe. We'll take the easy points. We'll kind of grind it out. We want to be more of a running team under Jim than we were. So it's kind of like the onus, the kind of the responsibility doesn't necessarily need to all be on Herbert's shoulders, which it was in previous regimes. So it had to do everything. Whereas now it's a bit more like it's a team effort, it's a team game. The defense is actually good now. We'll have a running game even more so than last year, and we'll kind of lean on that a little bit more. I mean, it's why all these stats were down, weren't they? All these counting stats were quite a significant amount less than they were in these first 3 years, let's say, because obviously he had a bit of time missing in that 4th year. But yeah, I think there's a few elements, and I think it all revolves around the coaching and the game management of the team overall, which kind of takes opportunities away from him.
Yeah, and he just needs one good playoff. Burrow's only had one good playoff run, by the way.
Yeah.
Say, anyone go back and watch those games? He didn't play great in those games. But it was firmly 60-yard field goals, and
Evan McPherson won quite a lot of those games that season.
He did, and it just feels like if Herbert had one of those this year, maybe he, gets an AFC title game in Arrowhead or something like, and he beats Burrow and Lamar.
Yeah.
Everyone will be like, "Oh wow, yeah, he's taken the leap." Whereas it's like, well, he's probably already there. He just didn't quite work out before, but we'll see. Cool. So we got our top 5. Let's get on to options for top 6. You said you had 2. Don't you have to say who it is yet? But you had 2 realistic options. You said. Who are your realistic options?
So my I have a 6th, and then there was a bit of news about this person. I was like, he's already old, and like if this is really bad, then can he be 6? I'm not really sure. And then I have like a 7th, and I was like, I'll bump him up to like a 6A, 6B thing. I'll stop talking about the subject. Do you want me just to say the names?
Well, you already know who. I already know just from the way you worded it, but say the names. For,
so go on, say who 6 is then, considering that then.
Mr. Stafford is 6.
Yeah, 6 is Stafford. Yeah, 6 is Stafford. He again kind of checks a few of the boxes. Elite arm talent. Again, like I mentioned him in passing with all the other guys that I mentioned in terms of the arm, but obviously doesn't have the mobility, doesn't have any of that scrambling, so can't really join that elite tier. But he kind of gets away with it because his pocket movement is really good, and obviously like all the arm angles and like the way he manipulates the defense with like his eyes and like his body language and it's just like doesn't make up for his lack of mobility, but definitely compensates for it in part. But obviously he's got this like ruptured disc in his back or something like that, and we know that Matt Stafford's like incredibly tough and he's played through like so many injuries. But he's 37. And it sounds pretty serious to have a ruptured disc. I don't think I'd be playing NFL football if I had a ruptured disc. So like his lifespan at the top is already coming to an end because of his age. He's completely immobile, which limits the ceiling, and then he's got like what sounds like quite a serious injury. I don't know if I can turn up onto this pod and say, yeah, he's my 6th, like clearly, with all these things kind of mounting up, to be honest. But he's been rejuvenated in Los Angeles. I know, like the same for Jared Goff, like it was a win-win trade.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he's just like so good for like someone of his age, and I think like because the Lions weren't very good for years when he was the quarterback, he didn't get any recognition or very little recognition how good he is, and now he's kind of getting that over the past few years. I still think he's right there with like the way that he controls the defense, and like say he's still got all the arm talent in the world despite being 37. And you think about Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, they've like it was a debate earlier this week, wasn't it, about Brady and things like that online, but they have deteriorated as time gone on. But Stafford's like 37 and still like despite being like broken a lot of the time, he's still like arm is still insane.
Yeah, his kind of ability to fit things in tight windows is almost like unmatched, to be honest.
Sidearm as well a lot of the time, and things like that.
Yeah, like Mahomes will do it by like taking a step and make like faking it or faking the run. Like he'll be using his mind and his physical tools. Where Stafford, like you said, doesn't move anymore, so he's fitting into the same windows as Mahomes, if not tighter. Similar to kind of probably a Burrow and a Herbert in terms of accuracy, but like not being able to move, just standing
from a completely stationary platform. Yeah, it's so impressive.
Yeah, the fact he can do that is crazy. I won't say my 6 yet, but he's in my 2 or 3 that could be 6.
Okay.
And yeah, unfortunately, me and you think 2. I should have got someone who I think is completely different to me. We'd have had a completely different list. But yeah, I'm with you. We just joked about the clutch gene for Herbert. If you want to talk about players who've got it, he 100% has got the clutch gene. Like,
100%.
just watch those playoff games he's played for the Rams across his whole time there. They've not won them all. They lost that game to the Lions, didn't they? Or the Bucks? Can't remember. I think it was the Lions. They obviously lost the Eagles game last year in the snow because of Jalen Carter turning into a monster. But just honestly, he's incredible in those big moments. And I think, yeah, he might be the best in the league for reading defenses, to be honest. Like, because he's doing it in a different way. He's not just reading it of like, what's the perfect play? He's like, okay, cool, what's the perfect play? But the perfect play will also get me like a 30-yard post. So like, he's doing it in like a much more aggressive, like, go win the game. Whereas maybe Mahomes and Herbert are doing it for like the best play here is a 4-yard check down. Yeah, that's what I should do. Whereas he's just like, I should do that, but I'll just take an absolute shot to the ribs and just do a post around the middle of the field for Puka. So,
but this is like the aggressiveness you have to play with to make up for the other deficiencies in the game, right? And that's still, all these things like keep him to 6, 7, in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, and I also think the defensive line is going to be great this year. Yeah. But their defense hasn't been amazing since he's been there. I know they've had like Aaron Donald, but like the other players on the defense aren't great. So he is having to be like, right, okay, I do need to go on a third quarter game winning drive or a fourth quarter comeback. Do you know what I mean? He's regularly having to, I think, do more. Whereas I think like, Lamar, Mahomes, Allen to some extent, their supporting cast defensively has been a lot better, better coaching, etc. What do you think about the argument? Obviously, he gets maybe the best play caller in the NFL, but then the other argument of, I don't think he realizes how lucky he is to have a player like Stafford, and he'll punt it on 4th and 1 all the time. Do you know what I mean? He'll run it on 2nd and 10, and you're like, why? You don't need to do this. Like, he actually is an amazing head coach. I want him to be the next Chiefs head coach if Andy Reid retires. I love Sean McVay, but some of his tendencies don't actually. He's not acting like he's got a top quarterback. He's still acting like he's got a game manager. Do you think like McVay helps or hinders Stafford more?
I mean, McVay definitely helps. Like, I don't think we can say hinders him. I mean, maybe like one of the points that I didn't bring up earlier when we were talking about Mahomes is one, and maybe you disagree with this given what you said, but I feel like one of the benefits that Mahomes has is like, I feel like him and Andy Reid kind of see football in quite similar ways. Like, they have quite fun tendencies. They want to kind of like, do that sort of thing that kind of like makes the game fun, and like they have fun plays and things like that. Maybe that Matt Stafford and Sean McVay don't like coach and quarterback in the kind of synergy that those two do, if you see what I mean. Maybe that's the best comparison I can say.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know if this really matters too much, but I guess like Sean McVay has to coach, like he's not going to have Matt Stafford forever.
True.
But I like, he can change like when he's not there. He doesn't need to coach like that now. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that or giving him an excuse, but I'm not really sure, to be honest, is what I'd say. I'd say he definitely helps, but maybe he just needs to be a bit more aggressive generally, which is kind of bizarre because he used to be.
Yeah, Robert May said when he was at camp, they had a chat of like, he's finally realised that he doesn't need to hold the reins on his quarterback, and that's why you'll see these big games like the Bills game or the playoff games where he just says, go for it. We're just going to throw it 30 times in a row. Every time we run it, okay, it's going to be third and 10. But he's like, who cares if it's 3rd and 10? Stafford will get a first down on 3rd and 10.
Yeah.
Whereas like years ago, he would have been thinking so far ahead of like, okay, I need to call a boot here. I need to call a screen here. I need to get Jared in a easy 3rd down. Whereas now he's just like, oh, come on, it's Matt Stafford. So they have said that Stafford has made him, like, weirdly has made him more, even though he's not, I don't think he's that aggressive. That, like, all the people that spend time with McVay say the same thing, that he's just like, yeah, Stafford's kind of changed my view on quarterbacks. So if he ever gets another one, but a younger version, I'll be interested to see what that looks like. Who's the 6B then that isn't as good as Stafford? So didn't get your 6, but if someone else said to you, this person's 6, you're like, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to argue.
So I know you just said obviously we think quite similarly, and we've probably got maybe the top 5 is the same. We kind of agree on Stafford a little bit, maybe not the placement, but this I think is going to be maybe the most controversial one.
Oh no.
So, because I know he splits a lot of opinion, but it's Dak Prescott.
Okay, no, I like Dak, but I wouldn't put him 6. But I do like him more than most.
Yeah, I mean he's 6 with like an asterisk at the moment, isn't he? 7 in if Matt Stafford's not.
A lot of
like...
people wouldn't put him in the top 10 though.
No, I know this is what it is. It's controversial, but let me kind of give you my positives for Dak. Dak is one of the best processors in the league as well. Like
Yep.
we talked about Herbert, we talked about Stafford. Like he's elite in that area, like right with the top guys. And God, we're talking about Stafford being fearless. Like at his best, like Dak he'll squeeze that ball into that window.
Yeah,
And
take a shot as well. He'll
he's
take a
on
shot.
attack mode, and like it leads to, and this is the difference, I guess, between like the top 5 and like the guys that are in this second tier. Like it's the consistency, isn't it? It's like I will know when I watch Justin Herbert play every Sunday that he will be pretty consistent. Like it's weird if he has a really bad game. Dak has like low lows as well, but when
He
he's
does
on,
have low lows.
when he's on, he's on. He's also in like complete command of the offense. You talked about earlier. I can't remember who you're talking about now, but like complete command of the offense, checks, making calls at the line, 2 plays in the huddle. We'll pick the best one, just like complete command. I think you could drop Dak onto like any other team, he'll have complete command of the offense because he just knows ball at the end of the day. And he can identify where the blitz is coming from and all that sort of stuff. And he's just like a super sound. And this is what used to kind of be leveled at him, right? He's a game manager and things like that, which fine. But he's still like very, very good. I think I kind of wrote this in for you in my little notes. He kind of reminds me of another Dallas sportsman. He reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki a little bit in the way that he's like elite mid range, all the fundamentals, and like kind of just leads this Dallas team. But it's like obviously a different sport. Obviously, we know that, like I said, the lows are really low. Obviously, he's like not mobile anymore. So it's like I've gone for all these elite like have to be mobile, have to be a scrambler, and then like my 6 and 7 are like 2 people that just stand there. So that's kind of weird. But again, like he's got that Herbert nature about him where he's only really colouring within lines in the play, and that kind of makes him feel like a robot sometimes. But like the highs, like right up there with the top 5 when it works.
Yeah, and he is one. We've spoken a little bit about like supporting cast / situations. He's a man who's hindered like hell by where he plays because of who his owner is, who his head coach is a bit. Look at the head coach.
Yeah, the head coach situation is like horrendous, like
The
throughout his
play
whole
calling.
career.
Yeah, like arguably this year might be the best play caller he's had, which is mental to say, because no one even likes Schottenheimer. But like,
Yeah. He wouldn't have got any other job.
No, it was McCarthy. I can't remember who called the plays. Did Garrett call his own plays? I can't remember if he called his own plays.
Garrett called his own plays for a bit, and then he gave it up. I can't remember who to.
Helen
And
Moore.
then McCarthy. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. And then McCarthy was the same, wasn't he? He had a OC, and then he did it for a bit, and there was all that wrangling about who's calling the plays, and then he was actually better than the OC in the end. But
yeah, and I'll die on the hill that Kellen Moore's overrated as a play caller. So
we will see, won't we?
Yeah, we will. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I wouldn't put him quite as high as you, but I wouldn't be on the top 10 list where he's not in my top 10. Big year for him this year though. It does feel like if he has a bad year this year, I think people are going to kind of write him off going forwards. But
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I don't want to add too much to what you said because I think you're spot on with him. But yeah, I'll go. Ironically, he's the most like Herbert in how he plays in terms of like reading defenses. It's just like Herbert will take the 8-yard curl and he'll look for the go ball. The
Herbert is like the good comparison, but he's such a better decision maker. Like Dak will read it out and like he'll process it, but then he just goes, fuck it, I'm just going to fit it in there anyway. Whereas Herbert doesn't do that.
He does, yeah. And Dak Prescott also loves tight ends. So some of the picks he throws, because he's just like, he's got a tight end on his seam, he's like, got to fit it in. Jake Ferguson has got to catch this ball. And you're like, you should probably try and throw it to CD Lamb over there on the sideline. But yeah, no, he is a good player. Since I think he had the high ankle sprain, then he broke his leg or ankle. And it feels like then he's just stopped running, stopped moving. But he is a lot. I don't know. He's got to be 8 years younger, maybe than Stafford, 7 years younger. But he almost looks older in how he plays sometimes. But that's purely just because of I think injuries have affected him physically, but I think it's more
mentally as well. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he's definitely in my top 10. Do you want my crazy? He's in there with a shout, and I don't think you'll agree.
Always, yeah, go for it.
the other player I've gone for, I wanted to. So last year I would have said CJ Stroud. I would have said that last year, but I think he regressed. He regressed last year. Another person regressed, but I just can't quit him. I've gone for Jordan Love as one of my other options. He's arguably probably the most similar to young Patrick Mahomes in how he plays. Very aggressive, much better at reading defenses last year than before. He was injured all last year, so I'm kind of hoping he has a bit of a bounce back year than what he played like last year. But for me, I just love how aggressive he is. Arm talent, all the arm talent in the world that we keep talking about.
Absolutely.
Can move around a lot. I think he's a little bit similar to the kind of Herbert in that regard of moving. I just think he does it a little bit more, but still not enough. I think he could also be kind of coached into scrambling more, and maybe that's the head coach's decision because they're very process focused. Like they don't want a number one receiver. They just want this is how we're going to play. I'll get the players open, whatever. But for me, I just love how Jordan Love plays. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I think mentally he's up there with all the guys that not the top like maybe Stafford and Dak, but Lamar Jackson. I bet it's similar. If you put him on a chalkboard and said, right, let's talk about this coverage, I bet Jordan Love is similar now because he's been coached by such a good offensive mind in Matt LaFleur. And I think he gets a little bit kind of knocked for being too aggressive sometimes. Whereas for me, I just think that's more the situation he's in. I think he's kind of not got a lot of top-end talent. The offensive line's good, not great. They run the ball a lot. Like their run rate, out of all the guys we spoke around, their run rate was the highest out of all these teams. And for me, I just think he's in a bit of a weird situation. But I think it was all because of injuries. That game in Brazil, hopefully it doesn't happen to either of our teams. But just since that game, I just felt last year he was hampered. It just wasn't the same player. But if you go back to the year before, those CJ Stroud versus Jordan Love debates, I love CJ coming out of college. But I just think Jordan Love for me is just my kind of quarterback. A bit more aggressive and a bit more risk-taking, which is kind of what I like. So, yeah, he was up there with Stafford as the option for the 6, and then one more name, which we'll talk about in a minute. But any opinions on Jordan Love?
Yeah, to be fair, you've hit a lot of the points that I would make myself, to be fair. I'm in agreement with you. I wouldn't say I'd rank him as highly, obviously I've not. He is in my group between 8 and 10, which I didn't really rank, but regardless, he's in that group. The reason why he's in this group and not the 6-7 group is because I just need to see more of a sample size, and we've still not seen like John Love like a lot. You know what I mean? No. So I just need to, come 12 months' time, if we're doing this pod in exactly the same sort of time of year, if he's had a good season, and then when one of the two other guys doesn't, or one of the top 5 doesn't, maybe we see a bit of a rise for him, in my opinion. But I just think I just need to see more of it. Like say, he's obviously been in the league, he's been on the radar for a long time, sat for a long time, finally got his chance, and like say, it was a bit hampered with injury at times. So just need to see more of it. I don't think you're wrong in anything you're saying. I just want to see more of it, to be honest.
Do you prefer him to CJ Stroud, or you prefer being more of a CJ guy?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've got him ranked higher because I've noted my 3 other players down that I've not mentioned, and CJ's not in that. So,
okay.
I guess by virtue of that, I've got to say I'd rank Love ahead of him because I think that again, like we've not seen, obviously Love's been in the league for a lot longer, but we've not seen a lot from CJ Stroud, and last year was not great in some senses. Like obviously, really good rookie year. Then you have a bit of a sophomore slump. We've got to see it again this year and see what the real CJ Stroud is, because it's probably somewhere in the middle of what we've seen so far.
Yeah, he had some really bad habits last year, like kind of turning away from hits, not keeping his eyes down the field. It was, we hope it's the offensive line because they do. Some quarterbacks do learn these habits, and it can take me years to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he would have been 6 last year, like for me, like when I did this.
He was popular pick, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he was 10 when I did my top 10 a couple of weeks ago. I think I had him about 10, and off the top of my head, it's probably 10, 11-ish for him. The other player I want to mention, and we will end with like snubs because there's definitely one player who just recently beat my quarterback in the Super Bowl that people will be talking about. Jaden Daniels. I know you're going to say not enough sample size.
Well, yeah, but I mean, after 1 year, you've got to take like what it is as like, wow, that is some season though, right?
Yeah, some season, yeah. And spoiler, he is actually 6 on my list. I had
Do you know what?
Stafford.
I know I'm
Oh, go on.
like going to make myself sound like a hypocrite because I'm talking about sample size for 2 games. If you go back to the start of the pod, I'm talking about these 3 things. Like he's got all those 3 things in terms of processing, arm talent, scrambling, rushing ability.
Yeah, and I don't think people didn't think he was necessarily going to have the processing ability. I don't know if that's wrong or not, but a lot of people I listened to at the time were kind of doubting that he might have that. Whereas I think for me, it's more he didn't need it in college. The team that he played for and the weapons that he had, and he's got some negatives. But I went with him at 6, which is why I laughed when said we think similarly, because I actually had Stafford at 6, and then I was thinking about the back injury. I went back, like I said yesterday, and watched games from all these guys. Some of his throws were mental, but like in the Eagles game, there was like 3 throws in the second half where I was like, if he could just move 2 yards, he's got first down there, and they're still driving. But he had to try and fit it into a window that can't quite work. Gets knocked down. One of them, other one went wide. The other one he took a sack, all because he couldn't move. And I'm just kind of like, I love him. I would pick him over Jane Daniels for like I need one player to win one game because I think he's that good. But in terms of like overall across the whole season, I went with Stafford 7, and I went with Jaden Daniels sneaking into 6. I love Jaden in terms of rushing ability. I think the 4th down metrics are obviously nuts. He's not going to be that good on 4th down, but a lot of the 4th downs, if you ignore the running ones, they're ones where he's kind of reading out, okay, I'm getting blitz, let me replace the blitz with a pass, normally to a tight end or a running back. But like loads of the 4th downs are rushes, and he's going to have that ability for years, hopefully, as long as injuries stay away. But I was more impressed almost to like, teams are getting to the point where, like, look, we know they're going for 4th down. We're going to blitz to stop them running up the middle, because otherwise he'll just QB draw it, and it's a first down. And it still didn't stop them. And again, they're not going to be as good at 4th down this year. Obviously, teams are going to have a better plan. But that was my doubt almost of like, can he really be a top level, like mentally, can he be up there with the guys in his draft class or with the top QBs in the league? And he definitely proved me wrong. Down the field passing was better than I thought. Really, we knew he was really aggressive, but I didn't realize he'd be that good at it straight away. Like, he's always a good deep ball thrower in college, but it's different in the NFL. But it just felt like ever since that Bengals game, Monday, Sunday night, whatever it was just like, okay, he's just aggressive, can throw.
He's real,
yeah, and it's real. And my main drawback for him, again, small sample size. Again, I would have had CJ 6 last year, and now he's not 6, so Jaden could be further down the list next year. But the main one in terms of actual his play, I think for me, when the play's broken down, he's moving around. His only goal is to run. His only goal is, I'll just run for 5 yards. But there could have been a scramble to the right that ended up being a 50-yard pass or a 30-yard pass that Lamar and Josh would do that he doesn't do. And I think eventually that'll be harder to keep running again. As he gets older, he's not going to want to keep taking hits and hits and hits. He's still pretty slight compared to some of those guys. Even Lamar, I think he's probably more slight than Lamar. So for me, it's just that's the next evolution is, okay, cool. Deal with how teams are going to play you this year. They're going to play you completely different. But second, when you're scrambling, don't just run it only. Let's try and throw the ball. And I think if he nails that, he'll be, in this top 6, 7 for probably years to come until another quarterback comes out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, he's 10 for me, I would say. I'd say, obviously, I've got John Love, another quarterback that I've not mentioned in this 8 to 10 range. I would say he's probably 10, probably because of, like, we talked about the sample size. But one thing that he's got, not only the 3 kind of traits that we were talking about at the top, but he also, like the top 5, he changes the way that the defense has to play, like just through like his play, his attributes, his physical attributes in particular. And that again is like going to be a key for him, probably moving up the list rather than down it. As much as you're right, he'll regress in some ways for sure, because it's impossible not to, because it was so positive in some regards last year. But again, that's like another ingredient of him being like top 5, top 6 quarterback for a long time.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Cool. We don't want to go into every other QB. We've basically at time. But who's the extra name that you had in your top 10?
Just because he's one of my favorite players, and I'll never quit Jalen Hurts. It's Jalen Hurts.
Oh, wow, okay. I didn't think you were going to say that. I don't know. I don't know why.
I'm a massive Jalen Hurts guy. I just think he doesn't have like a lot of the top attributes that we've been talking about. Like he's got some of them, and obviously got scrambling, but I just think there's just something about that like ability just to lead and to win. And I know he's got like a massively like favorable sporting cast in a lot of ways, but I just feel like he just finds a way to get it done. As as like other quarterbacks don't. Like we've talked about some of the top guys, or I've talked about some of the top guys that just need to get a playoff win. Like he just gets that done. I know that's not all on him. He's not like the guy that's kind of elevating everyone around him, but there's a reason why the Eagles have got him. There's a reason why he has a lot of success, and we don't need to go into a lot of it, but yeah, he's just right up there to me. I think he was overrated maybe last year, and now I think he's gone back to being underrated. Strangely, after winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, that Super Bowl they lost when he played so well. That almost like people were like, "Oh, he's the."
He was like 6 on a lot of lists after that. Yeah,
if not, higher. And then you're right. He's probably further down now in lists. But yeah, no, I think I swear I can't remember if we had you on the year he came out, but I swear you've told me about your Hurts love before.
Yeah, I've been a big Hurts guy since he was at Alabama. I just really like his play. I really like him as a character as well. He seems like a solid guy.
I think I had him at 13, so that's a bit of a kick in the teeth.
I can see why. I can see why in some senses. Like I say, he doesn't have a lot of the really wow attributes, of a lot of the guys that we've been talking about. So it's completely fair. Like he's probably borderline 2-3 tier for a lot of people.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just upset they beat my team. Maybe I'm
he's trying to keep the rivalry going with Patrick. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. And then a couple of other names just to quickly mention that people will talk about in that top 10 somewhere. Jared Goff played much better over the last couple of years. Like you said earlier, really benefited well from the trade, just like Stafford did. I can't talk about Brock Purdy seriously in that list, but I did hear someone say today if he has another season like he did last year, he might be top 10. I'm like, okay, not for me, but in case anyone listening loves Brock Purdy. And then to me, the fun one for me that I'm just like, it'd be hilarious if he ends up being 10th is Baker Mayfield. Absolutely hated him at the Browns personally. Didn't like him coming out. The last 2 years, he has just been absolutely electric, and I hope it carries on this year without Liam Cohen. But he's another one that, again, I think 4 or 5 months' time, we could be like, okay, cool. Maybe he might not be 10, but he might be 13, and 10 and 13, the gap's tiny. I think he's another one that if he steps up again this year, maybe throws a few less picks, a few less fumbles, he could be up the list. But I don't think there's anyone else that we've not spoken about. I do love Geno Smith. People talk about him in there, but he's not quite up there for me. But I've heard smarter people than me think he's in the top 10. But
yeah, there's a lot of media guys that really like Geno, right? I mean, we'll both see it this year in our division. Our division's going to be crazy tough with the kind of all 4 teams, I think, being really good.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's what an easier division would be like.
Be nice to be in the South.
Good head coaches as well.
Say that again, sorry?
Really good head coaches as well for us.
The best. I mean, I think only both West divisions, I think, have got like a claim to being like the best coaches divisions.
Yeah, ours is definitely better though. Can't be having Jonathan Gannon.
Different. It's more like Jonathan Gannon is underrated. I think. Well, that's another pod altogether. But yeah, I think the experience that they've got as well just kind of sets them apart, doesn't it? In the AFC West.
Yeah, the age difference between the two Wests and the coaches. Cool. Let's wrap it up there then. Some good quarterback talk. Lots of Herbert talk that I'm looking forward to getting some comments about. That'll be fun. What's your plan for this season? Are you on a content break? Are you writing? Are you podcasting? Like, let everyone know if you're doing anything where they can find you, mate.
Yeah, so I'm back at the touchdown now. I'll be doing a little bit of content over there, mainly written content. We're not doing many pods, so I'll be available if you want to grab me on the pod at any time. And same for everyone else as well. Obviously, talking some Chargers, talking some draft, whatever you like. So but while we're in touchdown, I'll be focusing more on NFL content like I was before I went on my break last year.
Nice. And when's the draft? When's the draft scouting ramp up for you, or have you already started like a year in advance?
So I usually, obviously this is going back a little while, but I usually set like May off, start again in June, start collating names of players, things like that, and doing my kind of like pre-work, like putting in my like production scores and stuff like that for like the players' years that they've had previously and other bits and pieces like that. And then we'll start watching tape like which I haven't actually done. A bit late this year with obviously getting married and whatnot. But yeah, I'll start watching tape fairly soon. I would say I'm probably a bit behind on that in terms of how I would be usually. But like you said at the top, been pretty busy with getting married and looking forward to honeymoon in a few weeks. So yeah, we'll get some. We're kind of ready to go, but we just need to kind of get started with it really.
Nice. Yeah, and unfortunately, you won't be on the pod in a year talking about Arch Manning because, like his uncle said today, he's not coming out, guys. He's playing at
Definitely
Texas
not.
for 2 more years. Cool. And yeah, everyone listening, you can remember go follow us at Go for Two Pod, and then on YouTube as well. We're Go for Two Podcast on there. Next time you hear Lee's voice, we'll be talking about playoff teams and talking about which teams may miss the playoffs who made it, and then what teams we think can sneak in. So it should be another good episode. But thanks everyone for listening, and we will speak to you soon.